We'll go ahead and get started. Good morning. Thank you all for joining us this morning and welcome to this morning's webinar. This is the sixth in our series going through our guide, taking the first steps together, a guide for creating collaborative peer-led services for parents affected by substance use. And today we're going to focus on chapter 2.2, which is the home visiting chapter. We'd love to get started with some introductions. If folks want to introduce themselves in the chat, you can share your name, your role, where you're joining from. We'd love to just get the chat going this morning. And my name is Adrienne Girard. I'm the director of the Training and Technical Assistance team for First Steps Together. And this webinar series is for anyone who is looking to launch, further develop, or enhance their peer-led home visiting or clinical services for families impacted by parental substance use. And each month we highlight a different chapter of the guide, explore the concepts, offer examples from practice, and share tools to support both the staff working in the field and the families that they serve. I wanted to talk a little bit about First Steps Together, do some really quick housekeeping, and then hand it over to our amazing presenters this morning. So First Steps Together is a home visiting program dedicated to serving and empowering families on their parenting and recovery journeys. We have sites across Massachusetts that serve parents and expectant parents who have been affected by substance use. We offer voluntary and free services in the home, community, or virtually, and they're delivered by a peer support specialist who's also a parent in recovery or a mental health counselor with specialized training. And we also offer groups and care coordination. First Steps Together is open to any person 18 years of age or older who's used opioids, stimulants, alcohol, cannabis, or other substances in the past or present, and who is pregnant or expecting a child or has at least one child age 5 or younger. Our website is www.firststepstogetherma.org, and you can find more information on our sites, including contact information. A couple quick reminders before we really dig in. So one is this meeting is being recorded and it will be available publicly. We'll send out a link to the recording and all of the resources after the webinar. We're asking you to please mute when you're not speaking and feel free to unmute for questions and discussion in the chat throughout. The information that we're sharing today is what we have found and what we know so far, but we always welcome others' experiences from the field. And we recognize that accepted language and best practices are ever evolving. And finally, as presenters, we aim to create a brave space for diversity, equity, inclusion, and we hope that others are willing to engage in the same way. So I'm going to take a second to review the guide, and then I'm going to hand it over to Erica and Jen Hinton, my colleagues, to dig in. So just to give some context to our training today, we wanted to share how and why we created this guide. So when we went to create this resource a few years ago, we envisioned that it would be an implementational manual for the First Steps Together site, which started as a pilot program. So this would support and guide our sites running this program. Now this guide has grown into a 300+ page labor of love, and it's really a resource for anyone who's interested in this work, embarking, expanding their work with peer-led programs that serve families impacted by parental substance use. It's a compilation of theory, practice, process, and experiences of so many who are doing this work every single day. We received a lot of input from content experts across the field, so many who are on this webinar today, and we paid really special attention to the voices of those with lived expertise, and those who are often marginalized populations within the recovery community. It's divided into 3 sections: building the foundation, serving families, and the My Family Portfolio and Provider Guide. The My Family Portfolio is a workbook that was created by parents in recovery for parents in recovery, and it's a collection of tools and resources for families impacted by parental substance use to help support both the parenting and the recovery journeys. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleagues, Erica Napolitan, who is the Assistant Director of the Training and Technical Assistance team, and Jennifer Hinton, who's a training assistant on the team. And they're gonna really dig in and walk us through this chapter.
Great, thank you, Adrienne. So if you're following along, you can see we're at the Serving Families section of the guide, which begins on page 122. And today we are going to be talking about home visiting, which you can find on page 153. Each chapter of the guide starts with a quote, and the quote for this chapter is, "Home visiting allows us to meet families exactly where they are at, but we don't leave them there. By removing obstacles to services like lack of transportation and childcare, we help participants clear their own path towards the life they desire. We are right there, walking beside them, holding hope and shining a light on the road ahead, taking those first steps together." And I think this quote just beautifully sums up what we do and how we use home visiting as a tool to serve families. So today we will be doing a brief overview of chapter 2.2. This section includes before the visit, during the visit, after the visit, and visit documentation. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to go through these sections. There is a whole section in this chapter on home visiting safety, and we are going to do a separate webinar to cover all of that because it's such an important topic. So stay tuned and we will let you know when that will be happening. But for today, we're just going to be focusing on before the visit, during, after, and visit documentation. So we start with the benefits of home visiting. Home visiting programs have demonstrated short and long-term impacts on the health and safety and school readiness of children, paternal health, and family stability and financial security. So we're going to dig a little deeper into the benefits of home visiting, but first I'm going to invite Joelle Dawson. She is a maternal recovery specialist and family recovery support specialist at JFNCS and First Steps Together in Project Nest, and she's going to join us and talk a little bit about the benefits of home visiting.
Morning, everyone. Hope you're having a good start of your day. I've been thinking about this since I talked to Erica, but yeah, so I try my hardest, even like during COVID, to do home visits just because like I see the difference in meeting with both mom and child in their environment, like in their home. And with that being said, even if for whatever reason, if our mom clients do not have their children, I still find the benefits in meeting mom in their home, just because it's a trying time for them. And they need the extra advocacy. They need they need that person to just hear them out and understand the struggles they're going through. But it makes me think of like two of my moms, one mom who has custody of her children and one mom who's fighting for custody of her children. Like the mom that does have custody of their children but still has the department involved, and recently was reunited. It's an uphill battle still. She has three littles. One of them has been going through some developmental delays, but just last week I was able to be there during an IEP evaluation, which this child needed definitely before he starts preschool in September. But mom was very overwhelmed. I think she didn't have the confidence to ask the questions that she wanted during this IEP plan. And just by me sitting there, I barely did anything. I just sat there with mom, but just by being there and like just being sitting next to her and like, muting and just kind of giving her that friendly reminder, like, oh, remember we talked about like that concern last week? And she'd be like, oh yeah. And then she would ask the question. It makes me think that if I wasn't there, she probably would have just stayed quiet and not said anything or had any input in what her child's IEP plan would be, right? She did absolutely amazing. And I can't stop telling her how proud I am of her. She herself was able to basically advocate for herself, just by me sitting next to her. But with my other mom that I was talking about that does not currently have custody of her children, she's going through, the normal, I wouldn't say normal, the common stressors of working with the department. She has two separate DCF workers because she has teenagers and she has babies. And she kind of was feeling like she was getting the runaround. And I understand why the client feels that way, but we all know how the department can work sometimes. But being that sounding board for mom, I visit with her every Friday. We've been working on the family support portfolio big time, and I think that helps her a lot in the sense of feeling prepared for court, which she has at the end of the month. But like during a visit with mom just a few weeks ago, I was able to help her call the specific supervisor and kind of question as to when she's going to get her visit with her older kids. And that's not because like they took them away from her. I think that the department was kind of more focused on her seeing the littles, and she was like, okay, but like, what about my teenagers? I want to see my teenagers too, and I was able to be like, you have that right to call the supervisor and ask like when that visit's going to happen. And she looked at me like, really? It's like, yes, girl. Like, you know what I mean? But like, sometimes they just need they need a sounding board. But she's going through a lot of discouragement, hopelessness. And like, that's why I find it even more important to meet with moms that don't have custody of their children, even at their home, just to be that glimmer of hope so they don't stop fighting and they don't, I think sometimes they feel like what they have to say isn't important. Their concerns, their thoughts, their opinions, and that's not the case. And I just feel like one of the biggest benefits of home visiting is like empowering that parent to know that they have a voice. They're not alone, and that we're here for whatever they need.
That's great, Joel. Thank you. When we were talking about this a little before, you had mentioned just, people's ability, like some of the barriers that get in the way for parents that we serve. Can you talk a little bit about like the difference that's made being able to come to
Absolutely. Yes. Many of my moms at the time, right now, deal with transportation difficulties, childcare difficulties. I also have seen a huge benefit in us as the advocates, like seeing sometimes some signs of like postpartum that wouldn't normally come up during like a phone call, right? Or sometimes it's like one of those things you got to see them in person and kind of see the behaviors. And also doing home visits it helps me to see like what that mom is struggling with, whether it's economic, whether it's mental health, whether it's their own child's development. They don't know if the child's on track or not, and they start questioning on whether or not like, do I have the correct amount of services for my child? And if not, where do I even start to get those services? Like, those are all things that I've seen to be like a huge help for a mom who's home with they lack the services, they lack the ability to just like hop in a car and come visit us at an office. And also just being able to see a child in their environment, like in their home, they don't even know or feel as if like it's a visit. You know what I mean? Like not a doctor's visit, but even any type of advocate. And I have been able to have a really good relationship in the sense of understanding their child, who they are. Like that mom I was just talking about, seeing her being able to basically be like, okay, but why isn't my child being offered this service? And I was like, looking at her like, you go, girl. Like, it was awesome. And she ended up being able to get that mom was able to get her child more time of speech therapy, which would be huge for this child, right? But she did that. I didn't do that. You know what I mean? And I didn't even have to remind her of it. Like, she did so amazing. And I just think that, say that for whatever reason I wasn't able to be there that day, a lot of things could have happened. She could have had trouble hopping on the Zoom, which can be confusing and annoying. Sometimes they're just like, I don't want to do this, and I get it. But it's like seeing her be able to explain her concerns with her child and say, okay, so what can you offer to help me with this? And them hear her and meet her halfway and be able to give her a little bit more services was like unbelievable. That's the second time I've been able to like advocate or be alongside a mom that was looking for an IEP plan for their child. Myself, I'm a mom in recovery as well, and I just went through the same steps for my 3-year-old. So being able to just be that pillar of like advocacy is huge. Absolutely, like, amazing.
Thank you, Joelle. That's really awesome. I love that just by you being present with this mom, she felt empowered to advocate for her son and say the things that she needed to say. And it really is this unique opportunity that we have being in someone's home to be present for these moments. It looks a little different than some other services that are available. So thank you so much for coming and sharing with us. I really appreciate having you.
Thank you.
It was great. So I want to put this to everyone in the chat. You know, Joelle just brought up some great examples of benefits of home visiting, but can you share, I know many of you that are on this call are home visitors. What are some benefits of home visiting that you see in your work?
Hi, I, um, the benefits I see at home visiting is really the relationship.
Mhm.
And a lot of programs, don't allow you to build the relationship that home visiting builds. And people get sketchy about letting you in their home, but once you break that wall down and you're able to build that relationship and be a trusted partner, you can't match that relationship because you can offer them resources. You're a ear for them to lean on. You're a professional. You're somebody they could look up to, all while partnering with them and watching them grow as not only a person but a family. And I think that's the most important.
Absolutely, Jacqueline. Yeah, like all of that, right? That, you know, just being able to meet people in their space. And I see some great responses in the chat. So connection as peers and parents, having a chance to role model what healthy parenting looks like. I love this, Josh, the entire process of being a model for a vulnerable person until they gain self-efficacy is an absolute blessing. Yes, it is. You know, to be physically present with someone, it makes them feel at ease. Yeah, these are great, you guys. Bringing a strength-based perspective to someone's home extends to affirming a person's ability to counteract stigma. Absolutely, Billy. Absolutely. And these are really, you know, there's so many benefits to home visiting. And we can move to the next slide, please. So, you know, as we think about this, really this idea of, you know, home visiting, you know, it removes these barriers, but it is, as you guys have mentioned in the chat, you know, it is such a bonus that in the recovery world, we often talk about, you know, how we meet people where they're at, right? But when we have the opportunity to do home visits, we are literally meeting people where they're at. We're getting a glimpse into their worlds. We have a better understanding of their surroundings and what's going on around them. When I was doing direct service, I had a participant who house was always meticulously clean. It was spotless every time I walked in. And there would be a few times where I would show up and the place would just be chaotic and it would be a mess. And, you know, she had shared with me that what is going on in her surroundings around her represented what was going on inside of her. And so when I showed up on those days when things were a little rough, I knew that she needed a little extra time to talk. I knew that she needed a little extra help. And I knew that the space itself was really bothering her because it was a mess. So we would take time and I would, you know, sit with her while she folded some laundry. I would help pick up some toys and let her talk about the things that she needed to talk about. And it was such a benefit to both of us. I got to see where she was and meet her exactly where she was. And she got someone that understood what was going on in her life outside of a, you know, 1-hour visit in a clinic. I wouldn't have gotten that view had I not been in her home. And it was really just this great way for her to have the support that she needed at those times. And I think this quote really kind of sums it up, right? That it's really hard for parents to pack kids up and get on a bus with a clunky stroller and a crying baby to trek across town to make it on time to an appointment to discuss challenges they are facing as a parent in recovery. By coming to them and meeting at their home or in their community, we can schedule around their parenting and recovery needs, such as 12 12-step meetings, trips to the clinic, nap time, or feedings. By doing this, we can reduce their anxiety and help them feel better understood. In this way, people may feel safer and more comfortable opening up about their life challenges and successes and can work on meaningful steps towards achieving their goals. So many parents, particularly those working towards recovery from substance use, may be balancing numerous responsibilities related to their parenting and recovery. There's these expectations of multiple service providers on, pushing down on them. So, we want to make sure that the families' concrete needs are met, that we are adapting to their schedules and their needs, and home visiting really removes barriers to accessing services and provides a flexibility for busy schedules for parents in early recovery. I know many of you have worked with parents that have a ridiculous amount of services in their lives. The amount of appointments that they need to get to is sometimes overwhelming. If we can ease that burden just a little bit by bringing our services to them, it helps them. It shows to them that we value them, that they're meaningful, that we want to be there in a way that's convenient for them. And home visiting really allows us to do this. So before the visit, and I believe Adrienne threw it in the chat already, but I think she's going to do it again. So we're going to talk about some tools and that are in this chapter. We have a file that you can access from the link in the chat that's going to give you all these tools and access to the digital copy of this chapter if you want to follow along. But we're going to get started with before the visit. So allowing time for visit preparation benefits both parents and providers by helping us to dedicate time in each visit for parenting, recovery, care coordination, and any urgent needs. So when we're thinking about preparing for a visit, we're really going to think about all of those pieces that we need so that we make sure that we show up for our home visits prepared and ready to support. And I'm now going to turn it over to my colleague, Jen Hinton, and she's going to walk us through visit planning.
Good morning, everyone. How are we today? I hope everyone's doing great. So yeah, we're going to talk about visit planning. So visit planning is an essential part of our work. It allows us to show up for home visits prepared and knowing what the priorities are for the day. Visit planning also helps us to be sure that we have whatever materials or maybe parent-child activities that we want to do, or something that maybe they need that supports their concrete needs. So it helps us to get all that organized before we go. We encourage staff to spend at least 1 hour preparing for each visit. And the things that can go on during this hour are, reviewing previous notes. I was a big one on that because I can't remember from last week to this week, everything, right? Gathering all the resources you need, right, for the upcoming visit. And maybe you need to make some calls to some other service providers to set some things up, or you had some questions, or, preparing for an activity at the home visit. This is also a really good time to meet with your supervisors, clinicians, if you have one at your site, or the larger team as a whole. And that, number one, builds teamwork, but also we can use that time to be supportive to other people's needs and helping each family that's in our program reach their goals. So all of these are pieces of the visit planning. It's super important. Next slide. So having a visit plan, we know that this work requires flexibility, right? We know that both families and staff benefit when an in-home visit follows a looser structure, right? But also it's going to have a routine, right? So when we have a routine, it provides a sense of predictability for both the parent and the provider, knowing that each of us has this safe space. We've created this wonderful space and we know what to expect at each visit, right? It helps also to keep our primary areas of focus on track, right? So what are our primary focuses? Recovery, parenting, and care coordination. And those topics should kind of be at least touched on, if not the whole visit, every single time, right? And that helps to keep us all on the same course. this also allows us to model skills, right? We're modeling organization when we come prepared. We're modeling planning. We've planned our appointment, right? Consistency and routine. We come when we say we're going to come, and the routine is we meet, usually at this time every week, unless something comes up. This is when we're meeting, right? This is all goes toward relationship building in a trauma-informed way. Okay. So, that's really important. And, when we arrive there with our thoughtful plan, we also say, oh, we're going to let the parents take the lead, right? Because something might have happened over the week, right? And they want to talk about that instead of filling out a form for something else, right? Or like something's really upsetting to them. So our staff is able to bring their unique lived experiences. And there's specialized training that they've received that can help participants along their parenting and recovery paths. But we always defer to parents because they are the experts in their own lives. I know sometimes it's easy when I would go to visit with a participant to get off on a different trail, right? Conversation went whoop, whoop, whoop. And but now we have this visit plan that we can look back to refer to kind of rein us back into the topic at hand of the day, right? The things that we know we really want to make sure we touch on. So it kind of helps everybody to kind of stay on the right track. We're also constantly balancing the immediate needs versus the longer term needs of the family, So we want the visit plan to have structure, but we also want it to promote and encourage progress that allows for family flexibility. This is truly meeting where people are at, right? And we encourage everyone to take time to do this because it's going to benefit everyone. This is a wonderful quote from one of our family recovery support specialists. And it says, when I am planning for a visit, I look back at my previous visit notes, as well as the participants' goals, to think about how to prepare and what to bring with me. For example, if one of their goals is to start taking steps towards going back to school, I will think about the resources I can bring to help with that, like information about the local GED or another continuing education program. So this is such a key point in our job. And sometimes, we forget about, we got to plan for this. We can't just wing it, right? We've got this wonderful structure now that we can use. And I think it also builds really, really good trust. And because they know that we're going to come there and we're going to show up and do what we said we were going to do, right? When a lot of times, I know many people, and including myself, we didn't have a lot of trusting relationships. This is a different way to show we are there, we're going to be there, we're consistent, we're organized, and we're here to help you. What your goals are, right? So I think that's a really important piece. And then we have this wonderful tool from our manual. There we go. And I just kind of wanted to review it because I think it's amazing. So it can be found on page 175 in our big manual, and I know we're going to have a link to that. But so the top part is just really the steps: name, client, identifiers, right? When did we talk about this? Where were we? I love this first one because, admittedly, this was a hard one for me to remember most of the times. Do I need to get any new releases signed or any existing releases updated? That was where I always fell short with the updating. I often forgot, oh boy, that person has been with me for a whole year. I need to get a new one. So this is a little trigger to help us remember that, right? And it also reminds us, make sure we have some releases forms with us, right? Again, preparing for the visit. Are there any screenings or data collection or paperwork that I need to complete during this visit? That also triggers, what do I need to grab? Do I need to, whatever I need, I know I'm going to remember to do it because I have this right here in front of me. And then what goals that we're working on during the visit, right? And again, this is a suggestion of what goals we're going to work on in this visit. We may show up and it might be something might have come up and we may have to tweak that. Again, the parents leading our conversations. And then on the bottom, this is a great tool to make sure we're hitting all the important topics we need to: parenting, recovery, and care coordination. It helps us to organize our thoughts, right? Following up. What do we need to follow up about? What are we going to focus on this week? And what do I need in order to provide the materials that they may need to make this happen? So when I was in FRSS, we didn't have this tool and I would have loved it. So I encourage everyone to really use it. It's really helps you focus and get it everything organized. So I am going to turn it back over now to Erica.
Thank you, Jen. So, all right. So we have a visit plan. Now what? Now we want to think a little bit about self-care. So self-care before and after each visit helps us to maintain our composure, our self-awareness, and readies us to focus our attention on the family's needs. One supervisor shared with us that, like, we are the keepers of these family stories. That is a huge responsibility. While we often get to celebrate parents' growth and accomplishments, we are also often hearing and holding stories and experiences that can be incredibly sad and frustrating, such as the removal of a child. And even though we felt like the dad or the mom was doing everything right, that still happened. A mom who has a reoccurrence of use months after hard work, an inability to find someone safe housing, or a dad who is choosing to stay with an abusive partner. These are all things that we experience in the field. And there are some of these experiences that we witness and help parents hold. And it really is why practicing self-care and taking a proactive approach to preventing burnout and compassion fatigue is so important for those of us that do this work. We need to fill our own cups in order to be able to be of service to others. So if we are burned out, we cannot provide effective services, and our workforce really cannot be sustained. And we've seen that happen. People burn out and they burn out quickly, but self-regulation and self-care practices can look different for each one of us. But for some, it's really just as simple as some breathing exercises or making time for a coffee before our home visits. So just thinking about, even as we're thinking about visit planning, how are we planning for self-care before our visits? How are we thinking about self-care after our visits? So really thinking before and after each visit, what can we do? Can we breathe? Can we practice a ritual? Can we listen to music? Do you have a favorite song that you like to put on in the car as you're going from visit to visit? Taking a coffee break, talking it out with your supervisor, or leaning on a trusted partner to discuss how you're feeling. You just heard some really challenging things. I need to talk out how I'm feeling right now. Taking that opportunity before your next visit to talk that out with your supervisor. So I'm curious, we all do this work on this call. What are some things that you do before and after each visit? Do you have a ritual or a self-care practice that you find yourself doing as you're doing this work? You can throw that in the chat. And thank you, Adrian, for putting the question in. So what do you do before and after each visit? Do you have a self-care routine or ritual? I know for me, I'll just share, when I was doing direct service, I had a worry rock in my car. And before I would go in, I would pick it up and I would rub the rock and I would take a few deep breaths. I would ground myself, get a little centered, and I would go in, and then I would repeat that process when I came out, so that I could release the things that I heard. I can ground myself again and move on to the next thing without carrying over from one visit to the other, and making sure that I'm caring for myself. And yeah, Billy, I love this. Lots of deep breathing to prepare. You would be present with the family on your way, and lots of movement and walking afterwards to process. See, that's great. Move a muscle, move your mood, right? Kind of moving your body. I see Cape Cod saying, check my energy. Jen Roberts, watch a funny video clip that I know will make me smile and laugh, to kind of a reset. I love that. Also, some more deep breathing, taking time to think about what I want to say, how I want to say it, and then being reflective after the visit. So these are great ways. So, Chelsea, I love this. You carry Sage in your car, and energy check-in time for me, depending on the visit. I may even reach out to someone for support. So this is great. So there's just this way of like making sure that we're checking our own energy, that we're feeling okay, like doing something to, you know, prepare to listen and then to release what we've heard. These are really good practices. And if you don't have one already, I'd like to challenge you to try this before and after your visits, whether you are home visiting or you're seeing someone in a clinic setting or a hospital or wherever you may work. Even if it's just a quick 2 minutes or a minute, whatever time you have to do something significant for yourself in between visits, it can help us really better serve participants. So during the visit, so this is the time when we really get to sit with our participants or parents and find that common ground through lived experience. If we have it, to celebrate successes and to help them work through challenges. So we encourage our staff to approach each visit with flexibility and an ear towards the parents' priorities. During the visit, as we kind of mentioned before, we want to model for program participants the skills that we seek to build around parenting, recovery, and meeting concrete needs. Even during those visits, when a participant is upset or distracted, or their child needs attention, which we know this happens a lot, or there's been a crisis that takes over our planned meeting, we can still respond thoughtfully. In this way, we really strengthen our connection with the families we serve, and we help build their own reflective function simply by showing up and offering a consistent, calm, patient, flexible, and non-judgmental presence. We use, guidance and tools. Hold on, it's okay, we can go ahead. So we do use guidance and tools for the first steps, My Family Portfolio during our meetings, and it's a good way to really get to know participants, especially during those first few visits. And we're going to talk a little bit about some of those tools that we use. So some of the examples of the plans included in the First Steps My Family Portfolio are, we're going to go through them. Also, you can refer back to that link that Adrian shared, and I'm sure we can pop it in again, and this will bring you to some of these plans. So we have a wellness vision, which is in the My Family Portfolio, and this helps us think through activities and practices that can help us or the parent, stay healthy, become healthy, work towards the person that they want to be, and really create their own design for their life and recovery. We have a family care plan, which helps access needed services and can increase coordination between providers in the family, especially if there's potential for a filing with child welfare services. We also have the child safety plan, which was created to help keep children safe in the event of a health emergency or reoccurrence of use or other family crisis. I think this is great practice for anyone. Like if I was in a car accident on the way to pick my kids up from daycare, who is going to get my kiddos for me? Who's going to come help? Who can watch them for a little while I tend to my needs? We never know when we might not be available. So it's great to think about planning ahead for what our kiddos may need. And one of the other tools we have is goal setting, and we're going to take a look at that tool in a minute. And we also have thinking about vision boards for family goal setting. And this can really help us take the goals for the future and break them into smaller, more manageable steps. And we can use these tools both with the individual parent or with the family as a whole. So we're going to take a look at a couple of them right now. What we have up here is the First Steps My Family Portfolio, My Plans, Recovery, Maintenance, and Child Safety. This is a two-part plan. The My Recovery Maintenance Plan helps to prevent relapse or recurrence of use and stay safe in the event of if use does happen. And it can help parents to support and sustain their recovery. So there's spaces on here to discuss how you know that a recurrence may be coming up, who you can contact, what you're going to do to manage things in that moment. And if a lapse does happen, how you can get back on track. And then we have the My Child Safety Plan, which, as I just mentioned, has all those pieces of, who can take my child in time of need, who can I call, who's a safe person to stay with me if I need it. And it just really covers all of these things. So it's a great tool for us to be able to use with parents, and it can help us in the event of a crisis or emergency. We know what our participants' wishes are and how we can help support them through these what could be challenges. The other tool that we wanted to highlight was the My Goals. So, setting goals really is this exciting way to imagine or think about designing what your future and your children's future as a parent in recovery may look like. And when we think about that, we want to think about like goal mapping and how this can help us break these bigger, longer term goals into smaller, more manageable steps. This tool, the way it's designed, can help us take those goals and break them down. But one of the biggest pieces that I love about this tool is the why. So we have our main goal, but then we have the why is this important? This is a great space for us to talk with participants about, so they've set this goal, like, why is that important to you? Because when we can identify our why, we're much more likely to start working towards our goals and those small steps to achieving them. So once we've done that piece, this tool then breaks it down. So we break down the goals into smaller pieces. Who is going to help me with it? When am I having this done by? And the action steps to get there. And it really just helps us visually see what our goal may look like. And it's designed to follow a SMART goal setting. So you'll find this in the file that Adrienne shared. I encourage you to use it with your participants when you're thinking about setting goals. And we're going to get a little more into that in this next section. So really goal setting. First Steps Together takes a person-centered and strength-based approach in all of our work, but particularly when working with a family to determine their own goals as we work together. This is the key to what makes First Steps Together a little different. The parent is driving the work. They are really the one that's setting the goals. So we really believe that individual goals should be identified by a participant based on their own needs and their own hopes for their future. As a program, we do embrace all passive recovery and harm reduction. So therefore, each participant's goals will be unique to their preferences and their practices. Participant goals will usually fall into 3 areas of program focus. So our parenting, recovery, and care coordination. And that really like helps us see what direction the family wants to go to, how we can help provide support. And we really do support participants' self-determination as they like navigate this process of setting and working towards their goals. And it allows them to take their own initiative and appreciate the consistent progress that they're making when it happens. So this is a great quote from one of our supervisors, and it is recently a client wanted to get her driver's license. Her first week's goal was to get the manual that explains what is needed to obtain the license. The next goal was to get all the required paperwork together. After that, the goal was to submit the paperwork to the Department of Motor Vehicles in order to set up an appointment. After completing all of these smaller steps, our client was able to obtain her license. So I think this is a really clear picture of how we can take that bigger goal of getting our license and break it down into smaller steps. And when we break those goals down into smaller steps, and the people that we're working with are ourselves when we set our own goals, when we reach those small goals, it gives us more momentum for the bigger goals. So it just helps push us forward and keep taking those small steps, and it's fulfilling as we get there. And then when we achieve things like getting a license, which is a huge thing when you haven't had one, it feels really good knowing that you did that work. So I really would love to hear, in the chat, or you can unmute, what are some goals that you have helped participants set in your work? Getting a GD. All right, awesome. Those are two big ones.
I had a have a participant that like wanted stability on her own, like away from her partner in a DV situation. So that was like the main focusing goal. And we broke it down into like getting her applying for housing and whatever. And like in the past 3 months, she's gotten her Section 8 voucher, and she just texted me this morning that she can move into her apartment August 1st. So it was like
Cool.
it was
That's
really, really
amazing.
awesome.
That's great. And I appreciate you sharing that, because that's a perfect example of how we can help like break down those really big goals and support somebody through them. And what an awesome win. I mean, that's huge. Congratulations to your participant and for you for the support. That's so good. Thank you for sharing. That's so exciting. And Joelle, we have helping a client sign up for driving courses before taking their test, and helping a mom sign her children up for summer camp. That is actually like a huge, like daunting task, right? So being able to help people break that down. Ashley, I see completing an autism assessment. That's also a really hard thing to walk through, but that's huge to get to that. I know all the steps to get to that. That's a lot. And to be able to break that down as a goal and help somebody complete that. I see one completing drug court without incident. That is a huge success as well. Getting SSDI for son, school registration. Yes. Oh my gosh. I remember signing my kids up for kindergarten being like, whoa, this is huge. I really had to break that down into smaller pieces. A client that recently graduated, hit all their goals, got her GED, started working, with vocational tech support, and is now a peer recovery coach herself and has a dream to become an FRSS. That's amazing, Chelsea. These are great, you guys. These are really great examples of goals. The Billy, I see this driver's license, increasing safe social support, getting through probate court, having equal parenting time, also really huge. Employment, what type, where, transportation, figuring out mass health issues. Yes, that is a great goal. So there's not always like, I'm gonna go do this huge thing, right? It's like, these simpler things, I mean, not necessarily simple, but these like things around concrete needs are big goals that we can help people work towards. So I really do encourage you to use the tool to help break it down, thinking about getting those steps. And it's so exciting to watch our participants reach their goals, even if it's a small step. Like, I did this, I took this step, I filled out this application, now I have Section 8, now I have an apartment. Like, being able to do those things, it is so empowering, and it opens up so many other doors for us when, we're coming from the space of maybe thinking that we can't do the things to then thinking that I can do the things. It is so incredibly empowering. All right. So we're going to move into creating visit flow. So we talked about our plan. We talked about taking care of ourselves. We talked about what kind of tools that we can use during the visit. But now we're going to talk about how do we create that visit flow. As Jen mentioned a little bit, creating that routine with participants helps us create safety. So thinking about how do we do that? We can use open-ended questions to create a scaffolding and flow to our home visits. And we can do this by following this little practice. So we start with an opening question. So when we get there, the first thing that we're going to do, we're going to say hi, and we're going to ask an opening question, and it's going to be open-ended. So, how has this week been for you as a parent? Not like, have you had a good week, or how are you? And you can just get that good, but like, how has this week been for you as a parent? How has it been in terms of your recovery? And then, we can have some conversation around that. Maybe we're starting to work towards some things on our visit plan that we brought. We're working on our wellness vision, or we're setting some goals, or we're just simply having some conversation. And then we're about halfway through the visit, and we're going to pause, and we're going to ask a midpoint question. And I think this is an incredibly powerful question right here in itself. So are we getting to what you wanted to talk about today? We might have come in with our plan, and we know that, like, housing is top on your list. So we're filling out this application and we're pushing this, but mom seems a little quiet, and something seems a little off, but you're not really sure. And we're just pushing forward, but we're going to take that pause halfway through, and we're going to ask, Are we getting to what you wanted to talk about today? And that opens the door for mom or dad or, to say, actually, no, I really need to talk about this thing, and if not, what should we prioritize during our remaining time together? And it could be that mom really needs to talk about this challenging situation that happened at the clinic this morning, and she just needs a place to vent. Or, dad is having a really hard time with transportation for childcare, and he just needs to talk about some of his frustrations around that. So we can make sure that we're stopping halfway through and leaving room to talk about that. And then when we're getting, we're about 10 minutes, 5 minutes to the end, we have a closing question. So what are your goals for this week? What steps will you take to bring you closer to those goals? Really leaving people with thinking about, like, what can I do moving forward from this visit? So when we use open-ended questions to encourage parents to lead the conversation with what feels most important to them, and we just flow with this, we create this space that they know that every time Erica shows up to see me, she's going to ask me, how my parenting's been, or, how is my recovery doing? How have I been this week? That she's going to create this space for me in the middle of the visit to say that I haven't gotten to what I need to talk to about today. And then she's going to leave me with either a takeaway or something to look forward to or do for next week. This helps us take a trauma-informed approach. This creates safe spaces through routine and predictability, but it also opens the door for us to make sure that we are meeting parents where they're at and that they're getting to what they need from our visits. And we're going to dig a little deeper into how we can use open-ended questions to get into our areas of focus. So we talked about our 3 areas of focus, and our first one really is strengthening recovery. So I think this is a beautiful quote. I try to find the strength in their story, especially if they have had a relapse and feel like they don't have hope. I bring them back to a time when they were in recovery. We remember what worked then, and we come up with a plan. Even if it's just one thing that gives them hope, it's enough. Sometimes it's just sitting and listening to them. I make it clear I am not a sponsor, but I am a safe space, right? So this idea of really, spending time each visit, checking in about a participant's recovery journey and the needs and building skills to strengthen their recovery capital, right? So how can we help them build that capital? Participants' recovery needs vary depending on their individual circumstances, and each visit we want to make sure that we're checking in about the parents' recovery successes, what has been challenging. Some weeks a parent may feel confident in the recovery and that they have the support system they need, where other weeks they may have big feelings coming up or feel challenged or at risk for reoccurrence of use or relapse. They might share fears around maintaining recovery when they're stressed out and when they're emotionally or physically or mentally strained or have had an upsetting experience. If they're near or have already experienced reoccurrence of use, it might be hard for parents to share what they're walking through due to shame and stigma and all of those things that come along with that, right? And the challenges of them being a parent on top of that. So, knowing that we can lean towards open-ended questions to open the door for people to walk through and share how they're feeling, to remove some of that guilt and shame, to show up in a meaningful way, and help strengthen people's recovery. So we have some examples of some open-ended questions. So how are you feeling in your recovery this week? What supports have been useful? If you have had thoughts about using or just felt on edge, what was happening leading up to that feeling? I think that this is a really good one. Like, before you even got to this feeling, what happened beforehand? Let's talk that through. What do you think might have caused that? What have you done to take care of yourself? And how do you feel that either your use or your recovery is impacting your parenting? So using these questions is a way that we can help open the door for people to talk about how their recovery is going or what their challenges or successes may be in that moment. We're going to have an opportunity to brainstorm some questions together in a little bit. So our next step is strengthening parenting. We build parenting capital by exploring parents' questions and concerns, supporting protective factors, and working to strengthen the parent-child bond. some examples of open-ended questions we may use. Yep, you can move forward. To help support parenting are to ask, think back to your week. What has been the best part of parenting Susie this week? What has been the hardest part of parenting this week? Describe a time that made you smile or laugh. Describe a time that frustrated you or pushed you to your limits. What is something new Susie is doing this week? What about your parenting are you most proud of since we last met? And what are some parenting issues you want to talk about today? So a lot of these questions are focused on, the parent that may have custody of their children. So we want to think about, how can we fix these questions to feel a little more supportive for parents that may be experiencing separation. So we might want to lean with, how did it feel to have your parenting time with Susie this week? Or what was the best part of it? Describe a time during your family time that made you smile or laugh, right? We can adjust these questions, and we're going to share with you and here an open-ended question tool that has more ideas of how we can use open-ended questions to strengthen parenting. Another way that we do this, so some of our visits may include discussions of recent parenting challenges or successes, like difficulties with feeding, sleeping, behaviors that parents want help thinking through. They may also share times where they feel excited or connected to their child, for example, reaching a new milestone, or sharing a sweet bedtime routine. And parents might also reflect on their own experience of being parented, something they feel they did well or they wish they had done differently. This is also true for parents that don't have custody, as I mentioned, and we can think about, their family time or, how that feels to have limited contact with their kiddos. And we can also plan parent-child activities or different little things that the kiddos can do when we're visiting with them. Parents may share questions or concerns that they have about their child. I love that Joelle had brought up that she was able to support a mom through an IEP meeting, and we can do the same with early intervention. We can support co-parenting issues, just really creating that space for parents to talk about their needs around parenting, and help build that parenting capital. And here's a quote from one of our family recovery support specialists. I had a young mother I was working with who was convinced that her baby hated her because he cried all the time. I was able to teach her about behavior as communication and that his crying might be a signal that he was hungry, needed to be changed, or was just overstimulated. We practiced new soothing techniques together and explored how to recognize when her son needed a break from interacting. She was relieved to learn that her baby didn't hate her, and her son began to cry less when his mom was better able to recognize his needs. So really just being able to create this space for a parent to say, I think my kiddo hates me, right? He cries all the time, opens the door for us to provide some education, help mom or dad brainstorm some new techniques that they can use to help soothe their child, to help recognize when they're stressed, to really read their signs and cues that they're giving us, helps boost parents' confidence in what they're doing, and then that better helps kiddo too. One of the other things that we want to focus in on is really strengthening care coordination and meeting concrete needs. So parents might be seeking information about their rights or around certain benefits or government programs, the rights as people in recovery, and the rights around educational services such as early intervention. Families who need support in these areas where First Steps Together may not be experts in, but can play a vital role in connecting parents and providers to their community who are. So, one of the big things that we can do is not just we provide these services, but connect families to other services as well. Really thinking about how parents may bring up concerns about other providers or what services they're receiving, difficult interactions with child welfare, an upsetting comment from a healthcare provider, or worries around prepping for a court date. In all these ways, care coordination benefits the families we serve by providing resources, meeting concrete needs, making referrals, and really helping families to streamline their services. So regardless of a parent's needs or concerns, we as staff members can explore not only the issue itself, but also the parent's experience. So we take the time to discuss the underlying feelings of fear, potential outcomes, possible solutions, all of the things that come along with this. And, we're really encouraging home visitors to notice what the parent is experiencing in any given time and moment. There could be overwhelmed with feelings, in a space to problem solve, or able to plan ahead and think about what they can do in the future. Or they may, in these moments, simply need a time for a break and to breathe. Really depending on how a parent is feeling and what space they're in, their ability to make decisions, take action, or be reflective may differ. And we always want to keep that in mind, that as we're meeting people where they're at, what are they capable of in these moments? So when parents are ready to take action, we can help by sharing resources, helping them make phone calls, assist in planning and prioritizing, really setting goals and timelines, and providing support for families through every step of the process. When a family is not able to meet their basic needs, it is really hard to focus on anything else. We know that, right? If I don't know where my next meal is coming from, if I don't know where I'm going to sleep tonight, if I don't know how I'm going to get formula for my kiddo, I'm not going to be able to focus on things like, my recovery or setting my parenting goals or doing any of these other things. So that's why this care coordination and meeting concrete needs is such a crucial part of the work that we do. Some of the ways we can use open-ended questions for this is to think about, how have your other services been this week? Which of your service providers would it be useful for me to connect with? What specifically would you like us to check in about? And what resources, parenting items, or basic needs can our program support you with, right? So just opening the door for people to express what their needs are. And here we have, again, you can check in that file, our open-ended question tool. And I encourage you to take some time and to look at this. There is a bunch of different questions that you can use. You can even add these into your visit plan so you have an idea. Like maybe you have a new participant and your conversation's been hard to get going, but you know that they're working on this specific thing. You can use this tool to pull out a question to help start conversation with your parents or the people that you're working with. So we're going to practice. We are going to put in the chat the scenarios, but the scenario is that you've been seeing a single dad of 2 young girls, ages 2.5 and 5 years old, for almost a year. He's been dedicated to meeting with you regularly, maintaining his recovery, attending groups, and being present for his daughters. He was granted custody after meeting the goals on his family action plan, but still has DCF support. At your last visit, Dad expressed concern for his younger daughter. He has noticed that she isn't as talkative as the other kids in her daycare. He shared that he's worried with her development, but he's feeling anxious about what to do to support her and how this will impact his DCF case. So we're going to move to the next slide. And we're going to do a breakout activity, and we're going to break you out in groups. And we would love you to brainstorm some open-ended questions that you could use to support this parent. We're going to put a link in the chat that is going to have these questions in the scenario so that you can just click on it. I think there it is. Here is the scenario written up, and also a link with the open-ended question tool. So you have that access to that when you go into breakout rooms. We're going to put you into breakout rooms for, I think, about 8 minutes, and then we'll talk it through when you get back. There we are. Let's see. Nice to see you all back. Before we put slides up, does anybody have any examples that they may have come up with that they'd like to share? We can, hopefully you had a good time in your breakout rooms and we will keep going. And I'm gonna turn it over to Jen.
Oh, so now we're going to talk about my favorite part, celebrating progress and looking ahead. This is like just the best part to me. Obviously we're celebrating progress throughout the whole entire time they're with us, but this is the really big time to get together and help participants recognize their own progress and successes. And when we do this reflecting together on where they were when they first came into our program, and then the skills and connections that they have built while working with us, it can be so empowering because it's hard to sometimes see, you know, our own progress when it's ourselves. And by us pointing that out, I think it really helps to motivate and to keep going, right? And to say, oh yeah, I didn't think I really did do that well. So it's important to help our staff assist program participants in identifying their areas of need and thinking about what progress looks like to them in each of these areas. And I think that's an important piece, is that, what does progress look like to them, right? We may have our own ideas about what progress looks like, but it's their journey, not ours, right? So we want to make sure that they are seeing their progress and how they're growing and changing towards our goals. We suggest completing the progress and goals review every 3 months, which again is in our link there that Adrian put up. And when we do this every 3 months, we really should be with a collaborative meeting, that includes the participant, the FRSS, the supervisor, clinician, if appropriate, and any other service providers that the participant may wish to have. I know this was particularly helpful when some of my participants were seeing a clinician that was not within First Steps Together. And we would be able to work together and kind of talk about what they were working on, what we're working on. And that way we can rally around the family and adjust the goals together. And that way we're all on the same track. We're all looking ahead. We're not giving conflicting information. And I think this is a really important piece. And also just, it gives us a chance to pause and think about, what are our goals? What progress have we made, and where do we maybe need to direct more attention to? So this is really an important piece. Next slide, please. Transition and graduating. Oh, this is such a great time. As families near the completion of the program, we take time to reflect again on their progress, like I said before, and we celebrate their successes. And this is also the time that we're planning for a smooth transition from our care, right? One important thing to note is timelines are different for this transition for every family, right? We revisit the family's needs and strengths and supports, and that helps us to determine next steps, right? Working together with participants to determine their readiness to leave the program is really important, right? We explore whether they feel that they have achieved their goals that they had set for themselves throughout our time in our program together, and also gives us a chance to consider if they have adequate and ongoing supports that are useful for their family, right? Once we're done with our time together. Another wonderful thing to do is connecting them with natural sports in their community. And one of my personal favorites is warm handoffs to other service providers whenever possible. Pardon me. I know that I had a mom who was pregnant with twins, and she had already had several other children, and she was taking a medically assisted treatment, and she was really nervous about going into the hospital to have her babies because of the experiences she had already had with her other children. There was a lot of stigma involved. And so we discussed a program called Moms Do Care. And that is located right in the OBGYN office here, and it's connected to the hospital. And what that program does is it helps ensure that there's not a lot of stigma put on patients that are going through this, who may be on medically assisted treatment, you know, and they walk through it along with the mom, the family, right? And they help them while they're in the hospital. If they're feeling they're not being treated appropriately, you know, they will advocate. And we can do that too, but this was just another extension because she had so much fear going into this, having her babies again. And I'll tell you, I went with her to the first one, actually the first couple, because my participant was feeling really, really hesitant and uncomfortable. But within just a couple visits, she developed her own relationship with this provider, and I was able to let them take that lead. And of course, I helped her through her pregnancy and when she delivered too. But it was really good to have that extra support right there at the hospital. And she felt like I let her tell me when she was ready for me to not go to those appointments with her anymore, right? She felt comfortable enough, she was ready to go. So the other thing is, you know, participants may have really a lot of fear and apprehension about moving away from our program. You know, they've had that support, and now, you know, they might not feel so good about it and are afraid. So I think it's really important to open up discussing their concerns about this. You know, they need to feel supported still. Like, we're not just going to drop you and never help ever again, you know. While others may be like, yay me, this is so exciting, I want to shout it from the rooftops, right? And either way is totally appropriate. But we just want to make sure that we're cognizant and appreciative and acknowledging what they want. And so when it comes to graduation ceremonies, some age sites will have a big formal ceremony. Others just do individual goodbyes. We often give a small transitional object in celebration of this wonderful accomplishment. But these goodbyes should be tailored to each participant, right? And reflective of the time that you spent together. The goal is to recognize each family's hard work and to highlight how far they've come, right? And I think this is just so key because I know I've had participants that were like, I want a huge party, I want to shout, I'm so excited, you know, I want everyone there that I love, and, you know, we had a big party. And then other people were like, I don't like that attention, you know, but I do want to celebrate it in some way. And that's what it's really all about. Again, always following the parents' lead. Then there's the times, for a variety of reasons, that we sometimes don't have the opportunity to say goodbye or have a thoughtful transition plan with the participants that are leaving our program. When relationships end this way, it can feel really challenging for us. And something that we can do to help ourselves through this is reminding ourselves that this program is designed to meet people where they're at. I know we've said it and we always say it, but it's so important to keep that in mind. It could also be like, maybe we're not the best fit. Maybe this program isn't exactly what's the participant may feel they really need, right? And that's okay. There's other programs that might be better suited to them, and we can help them figure that out, right? Maybe this would be better, and explaining that to them and giving them options. And we also know that sometimes people aren't ready, right? They're not ready to commit to services that we're providing. And we know that's a huge part of what we do, especially in the recovery piece. You know, you have to be in the right space, the right headspace to do that. And it's okay if they're not. And what I love about this also is that we're always happy to re-enroll participants back into our program. Like if they decide that it wasn't for them, but then they change their mind, and maybe their situation and circumstances have changed and they're ready to try again. And that's what we're here to help with. And that is, to me, the best. I love that feature of this program, because some like, well, no, you can't come back. You already tried, you know, you're done. No, we would never do that. And I just appreciate that so much. And this is just a time for to show how much work they've done and really celebrate all the wonderful things that they have done to help themselves and their family. And it is just the best part ever. I'm just saying. I'm going to turn it back to Erica now.
Thank you, Jen. So we just have a few minutes left, but we really just wanted to take the opportunity to talk about, when difficult things happen in a visit. So when challenges arise, we want to think back to those plans that we created, and we want to reference their safety plan, their child safety plan, their wellness vision, or their recovery maintenance plans that they have proactively completed before an event that happens, so that these plans create a shared understanding and agreement of how to respond in times of difficulty or crisis, and we can empower parents to take an active role in their wellness, recovery, and safety. Depending on the circumstances, we may need to use our best judgment and call upon a supervisor for real-time assistance, or a director, or someone else that can help assist us in thinking through and making decisions. It really is our responsibility to take immediate action. Our responsibility to take immediate action really differs depending on the concern and whether there's a safety issue for either the parent or the child or the provider. It really is important and crucial for staff to always put their own safety first. And more substantial concerns for a child, such as safety issues, may require working with other service providers or reporting to an outside agency. If a staff member is uneasy about a child's well-being, we encourage them to first discuss these concerns with the parent when it's safe to do so. And then from there, always contact your supervisor. So we always urge staff members to consult their supervisors if they are unsure on how to best manage a concern. Just like we talk with parents about it taking a village and needing support, it also takes a village and support to be a provider doing this work of supporting parents. So when challenging things happen, please make sure that you use your supports, that you go to your supervisor, you go to your director, you go to your colleagues and talk the situation through, have a plan of how to act, and move from there. And again, we're going to talk more in depth about home visiting safety and what to do in times of crisis in a separate webinar. And so that brings us to after the visit. So after the visit, again, we go and we practice our self-care ritual. We want to take the time to complete documentation, seek supervision, and follow up after each and follow up with care coordination. So after each visit, we're really encouraging home visitors to take care of themselves in any way that they find most helpful. Connect with a colleague or supervisor, debrief that challenging visit if you need to, reach out to a collaborative partner to talk about the family's needs. It's really a time to consult with your supervisor about any questions or concerns that came up in the visit, and making sure that we're getting our paperwork done and we're finding those applications and everything they need. These are a really important part of making sure that we are taking care of participants through home visiting. So, and it is 11 o'clock and I'm gonna get you guys out of here. We have our next webinar coming up in September, on September 24th, and that'll be chapter 2.3, planning and facilitating groups. And we will explore how to plan, prepare for, and facilitate groups. As always, we have our ongoing support. For more information, you can go to our website, www.firststepstogetherma.org. We have office hours every Friday from 9 to 10 a.m. There's a link here. And if you'd like to connect with us, you can please email me at, here's my email address, or you can reach out to Nahia, Adrian, or anyone in the TA team. So thank you so much for joining. We're open for questions, and I think we have a survey to pop in the chat. I hope you get to enjoy some sunshine today. Thank you for participating, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.